Welcome to Patrick's Scale Studio. My name is Patrick. I'll be your host. So it's been several weeks here since we last touched USS Lexington, CV-2 by Trumpeter in 1/350th scale. So this will make build video 5. And really where we last left off, everything was painted up and looking kind of nice there. A little bit of variations in the paint. And yeah, that little pet hair there. And since then, we still have propellers to go. We've probably got a little bit of weathering and dull coat to go. I know we are talking about putting this stuff on board as well. Some of these bulkheads right here are gonna end up going back toward here. Just this one, for instance. And these have to go down prior to the flight deck going into place, because the flight deck's going to rest on them, in fact. So we got that stuff. Additionally, we've got a little bit of detail that's got to go into some of those pockets. And I think these are, I'm not 100% sure of the proper naval term, but we'll just go with yard arms for now. And then I think we're going to hold off on the armament until we get to, there's more and more detail on armament and boats, until we have a look at this deck. So first things first, let's go ahead and work on getting some of this stuff right here attached to the hull. I got to get some pieces unmasked and get these cleaned up, and I'll be right back here with that. Alright, and again, sorry it's taken so long to get out another video about Lexington. Of course, I've got a couple other projects that if you're watching my series, you're aware of. But in addition, you know, it's been working on things like, it had 148 Skyhawk, A4F, and it's just a simple kit by Trumpeter, but it's kind of helping to bring a little relief to relentlessly long 1/350th scale ship builds. Don't get me wrong, I love my ship builds. They're a lot of fun, but they can be taxing due to monotony. So it's kind of nice to be able to have something to break it up. So I went ahead with the real nice, simple, inexpensive kit by Trumpeter. Actually even decked out the, let's zoom this in a little bit. Decked out the cockpit a little bit here. A little bit of resin on the dial faces. Added the ejection handle there on that, and took some swiped some seatbelt decals from a Tamiya decal set. So really this is just kind of something I'm doing for me in the background for fun, and I can sit there and curse and get upset and throw things all I want without having to worry about it being acceptable for the general viewing public. At any rate, now I've got that out of the way here. We'll go ahead and start looking into getting some of this put into place. So, first things first, I'm going to start here on page 6. And we want the bow side toward us here for these parts here. I've got them all cut off of the sprues. And you might wonder how I could possibly kind of keep in line what it is I'm doing. But the nice thing is all of the parts are handed. They're handed to the point where the part can only fit in one spot. It can't fit in other spots. So for instance, when we take this part here, and this would be B12, it can only fit in that spot. It can't fit over here. See? So all the parts that I've done this with, that I cut off the sprue like that just to get prepared, I ensure that there's only one spot that can be. And so in this case, again, B12, right there. All right, pretty happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and make with the extra thin and get some in place. Hope everyone's been having a good summer lately. Weather started cooling down a little bit here in Cincinnati. It's kind of nice. And cooling down, I mean it's upper 70s to mid 80s, so it's but it's not like what I remember of typical Ohio summers where we're talking mid 90s in August. You know, the dog days of summer. Alright, so go ahead and I'm going to do this for every part, but I want to spin it around and have a look myself. Alright, and so now I can kind of see there's a little bit of a gap here. Move some things out of my way. Alright, and the gap I was talking about was this part right here, and you can possibly make it out a little bit right there. Just where it meets up with the parts that were already there in the hull and the hull itself. There's just a little bit of a gap. So I'm going to probably have to get, you know what, I don't know if it's going to make a difference to fill that or not. I guess time will tell when we get the deck into place. Temporarily we can see, but for the most part I was able to kind of just squeeze it on there. Alright, so putting this back around to how it looks with the instructions, because we're going to be looking for B14, and with the bow facing that way like the instructions, it's going to go right there. So again, only one of these parts right here can really fit there. And it is going to be this part right here. That is B14. And again, I know that because it can't possibly fit on the starboard side because it's too small and the ankles don't line up. So B14 goes right there. And that's a satisfying snap. I have to admit I have not gotten too much of that with this kit. Alright, so come on, we need a little bit more on there than that. When we're cementing parts from the back side, I don't mind having too much cement on the applicator. Because in fact what I wanted to do is to run into the joints through capillary action, and that tends to work out a lot better when you've got a lot of cement. Alright, let's turn that up and have a look. There. It'd be helpful if we got what we just did in camera. So there we go, it looks good. You can kind of see there is a definite color difference between the horizontal deck there and the vertical part. So I'm happy with that. Alright, so moving on to the starboard side. And I'm not really too worried about getting the ship reoriented as per the instructions. We'll just keep it where it is because the starboard side's already nice and close to us. Before I get to that, I want to show you, out of the gold medal model set, I don't know how well this is going to show up, but the gold medal models photo etch aftermarket set includes some of these watertight hatches, and hopefully it's showing up right there next to my tweezers. I ended up sanding off the molded end detail, and I put one of those in place. I did that for the port side as well, and I'll point those out when we go toward the stern of the ship. Alright, so here we go. This is part B13. B13 fits like a glove. There's no gap. Hooray for B13. So go ahead, and you hear stuff in the background. It's just because we get the window open. It's actually comfortable enough to have the window open. No AC running. There we go. Plenty of cement. Plenty of cement. We don't want this going anywhere. And now I'm sure it's not going to go anywhere. The one on the port side still looks good too. Very happy with that. Alright, so moving on. This right here is B15. No satisfying snapping noise like on the port side. It's alright. It still fits really well. So again, these parts fitting as well as they are is quite a departure so far from where we've been on the rest of this kit. That said, I'm sitting here holding this in, but it's alright. I got old Woody laying down on his dog bed in here with me, cocking his head, thinking I'm talking to him about the modeling the USS Lexington. But, I think it was the Langley. He was snoring so loudly it sounded. It came across on the camera as like a whistling noise. Always cracks me up. He's getting up there in age, so definitely starting to snore like an old man. Alright, while I'm holding that, I'm going to put a little bit more in place. And sorry, my fingers are blocking. I realize. As well as it fits, I still wanted to just keep some pressure on it. Here's some other dogs in the background outside playing. Of course, some of my neighbors around here also just refused to take their dogs in. Having a fenced-in backyard is a nice luxury when you have a dog. You can just let them out and not have to worry about them running and finding other dogs to play with or other people to be with. You're just kind of sequestered into your backyard. But fortunately, we've got families around here who take advantage of that and leave their animals out all day long. Imagine how that sounds when I'm in a work meeting or something like that and just your neighbor's dog won't stop barking because it wants to be let in. Alright, cool. Good deal. So, that right there officially completes page 6 of our instructions. So, move on here to page 7 of our instructions, and I gotta go and fetch some little parts. So we got these right here, F10, F10, 4 F10s, and then we've got these F28 parts. Again, I think those are just the little overhead davits for the ship's boats. So let me go get those parts. We'll be right back. All right, here is our F sprue and F28s and F10s. So here's F10, F10, and I've got 2 of these sprues, so that makes the 4 of these that we need. They look to be relatively straight. We'll just have to maintain a little care when cutting them out. And then we've got 4 F-28s. Now let's see if we can find those. Right there. Okay. And yeah, oddly enough, these don't look anything like the pictures here. So I'll get them cut out here and we'll have a look at them. Be right back. Alright, we're all zoomed in here. I got the parts on this page cut out that we haven't yet put on. Reminder, F-28, 4 of them, and 4 F-10s. The F-10s are right here. They're nice and simple. Just, you know, I've got a teeny tiny little ring and a ridge around each end. And they're tapered at each end, but that's really about it for them. It'll be simple enough for those. Now, F-28 on the other hand, have a look at the picture. And this is kind of where sometimes Trumpeter's instructions really fall short, because that is F-28. So I can see what Trumpeter did here was they drew the part as if it were being looked at from kind of like that. Just really kind of not a very good idea or representation of what the part actually looks like in the instructions. So Trumpeter, you could definitely do better. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and work on getting these guys painted up, and while I'm at it, I might try to get some other things included. We'll see. So one thing I'm going to go ahead and take care of while I'm also getting other parts painted here is Gold Medal Models. That photo etch set had a lot of railing. Way more than the ship actually needs. And it's cool, so you can add extra detail where you see fit. So with that in mind, I went ahead and got some parts of this, or pieces of this, cut to size so I can fit it. I have to turn this around to get it in the light so we can see. But if you can see, there is an actual like a walkway inside this boat pocket. So just kind of add a little bit more detail, a little bit more interest to those areas. I'm going to take those I've got some cut to size, and I'm going to paint that a lighter color than the navy blue so it stands out just a touch. And I'm going to put those inside as well. So while I'm painting the other parts that we are taking, I'm going to go ahead and get those painted up too, so we can get those detailed up a little bit before we get the ship's boats in there and the davits and whatnot. And I think it'll help kind of, you know, just that little extra bit of detail, help those areas stand out. So when that's all finished up, again, we'll be back to have a look at the parts going on and how everything's going to fit. At any rate, I just kind of wanted to take a break away from the main build sequence while paint was drying on parts and show off a little bit of what I've done and kind of why things have taken so long to get out. So this right here, this is a box full of SBD Dauntlesses, of which I need 36. So far from what I could tell, Lexington Coral Sea battle had a complement of 70 aircraft. That included 36 Dauntlesses. More than half of the complement were dive bombers. So I printed them off in 1/350th scale. Let me zoom in here so we can get a little better idea of what these guys look like. One of these days, I'm going to get gutsy enough to throw a macro lens on this camera. But that day's not here yet. Anyway, I printed off a bunch of these, at least 36. There's definitely extras in that box, though. Let's see if it'll focus there. You can actually even see down into the cockpit and the rear gunner position a little bit. You can even see the perforated dive flaps. Everything except for the landing gear and propeller was printed on this. So, there we go. Well, there's also a bomb as well. Rear landing gear is what I'm trying to get to focus on, but it won't. But it even has the little swing launcher for the bombs. But that's how it comes. Even has the little mast right there in front of the cockpit there. Is used for an antenna. Printed out great. All of them printed out great. No problem there. Like I said, I've got at least 36. I can't remember the exact count that I've got. And then we've got a little ramekin full of the right hand or the starboard landing gear, because those did not print on the main with the rest of it, with the main bit of the airframe. And then another ramekin here full of port side landing gear. The one thing that I'm still working on is getting propellers to print out properly. Those have not been printing out really well and really consistently, but I'll show you up close what one of these looks like completely together. Just one sec. Alright. This has got a propeller and the landing gear. This is separated from its supports. Sanded a little bit. Not 100% perfect, but at 1/350th scale, I'm pretty happy with what turned out. So part of the complement of 70 aircraft are 21 Wildcats. And then the rest of the 70 is made up of 13 Devastators. So here are the Wildcats, and these printed off in chunks of 14. So there you go. You can just barely, these got a really tiny little cockpit and really tiny little canopy, so thankfully there's not a lot to see in there. But I got these situated on a plate of 14, and I have 3 of them, so I've got some extra Wildcats as well. So after I get everything separated here, with all of them, with the Devastators, the Dauntlesses, and the Wildcats, there's going to be extras of all of them, so I'm going to be able to pick out the best. So let me get a Wildcat real quick, show you what that looks like. Now this Wildcat does not have a propeller yet, and that is really the only thing separate on this that I have to worry about printing up. The landing gear printed off, and that's how they printed too. So the correct landing gear with the correct landing gear bay, and it does still have a few artifacts from the supports. Just kind of haven't gotten around to getting those sanded off yet. For the most part, I've really been working hard on trying to get the propellers to print up. It's just something that is not easy to do. They're so tiny and thin. I'll give you an example. Alright, and I want tweezers for this. When you reach in with these big clumsy fingers, you're going to end up breaking them. But that is a propeller, and there is the tip of the tweezers. Alright, no, we are not saying that we've gotten this far and I lost a bunch of footage or anything like that. Really, this was just wishful thinking at this point. Go ahead and take these guys off. I was kind of playing around here with the deck a little bit. One, I want to check the fit against the hull. 2, its fit with each other, because it comes in 3 parts. And then 3, just to kind of get an idea where I'm going to have to put a little squeeze on the hull, and if I should get this deck in place before I start putting in railings and stuff like that in those boat pockets. Because it's plastic, there might be some flexing or something like that if I have to put a little squeeze on it, so I don't want to do that and then just stuff starts popping off and pinging off. So went ahead and did that. I'll push this aside and we'll pull this off. so there's the deck right there, and pretty much all I did was line it up and throw some masking tape on there. And as you can see, it's not 100%. Really kind of has to get cleaned up a little bit. But all in all, the overall fit is pretty good. I still have some sprue stubs I've got to get taken off. But the biggest thing here, and what maybe realize here, rather than sitting around and watching paint dry, which was what I was literally doing for a few minutes, there are things that I'm going to have to do with this deck that are going to be time consuming that I can probably accomplish while I'm waiting for paint to dry, and that is removing all of these nets. So these nets, safety nets, all 3 pieces have them, and I've got photo etch replacement for that. Oh, there it is right there. The gold medal models has the photo etch replacement for it right here. All these safety nets right here, which actually look like nets and not just checkered pieces of plastic. So I got to get all these cut off, and that right there is about 1/4 of this entire sheet of photo etch glue to dry. So I've got to get rid of these, and I was thinking at first rotary tool, but they're not terribly thin or terribly thick bits of plastic. So I could either use maybe a micro saw, or I could just kind of start scoring with an X-Acto knife. And Trumpeter plastic isn't the hardest plastic. It's not like the Hasegawa plastic, which is really, really tough stuff. Due to its hardness level being so good, the Hasegawa plastic sand's lovely. But Trumpeter plastic definitely cuts easier. And rather than the mess that a rotary tool is going to introduce to this small work area of mine, I figured just do that. As you can see, it came off pretty quick and easy right there. So I just have the rest of this deck to go, and then I've got 2 more pieces of deck to go. I'm going to go ahead and knock those out here so we don't bore anyone to death. Well, that said little pile of plastic is all of the safety nets from the edge of all 3 deck pieces. Because the plastic was nice and soft, which is a benefit. Trumpeter kits when you're doing modifications. Ooh, let's zoom out. It went nice and quick. So here is from bow to stern, and it is fit on there, and it everywhere where it's supposed to fit on the hull, it fits. All the little lineup, all the little tongue and groove areas, all the little locating ridges and everything like that fit. The only thing that I'm encountering here is one. When we do this, I'm going to have to squeeze the hole. Not a problem, because I've got these fantastic quick grips. I have 4 of them, and I checked, and 4 of them should be enough. But the other problem that I'm seeing here, and I gotta get this down so we can see exactly what it is I'm talking about, is, whoa, look at that deck. It is bowed up quite a bit. And it's just because there's probably about 1/2 millimeter too much of plastic somewhere. So I think this middle part is going to be the best part to shave down a touch of plastic on. And the reason behind that, why I would go with the middle piece here, is, let me get these guys separated. We'll put the middle piece aside here, and we'll concentrate one on the aft section. There is a very particular spot that this needs to fit down. So these right here, these corner kind of assembly alignment pieces, they line up to go right inside these corners right here. These ridges right here are going to go right behind the walls that line this deck right here. And then to get that in place, get this out of the way. The deck fits nice and cleanly right down to there, like that. And as you can see, it's a real nice smooth transition there. So this piece, as it is, fits very precisely right now. So I want to have to, kind of have to let that one be. I suppose if I needed to, I could shave a little bit from that right there. But moving on to the bow, and moving some things aside so we can see that. This right here fits right up against there inside the hull. So that is another positive fit. It has to be right there. And then back here we've got these alignment guides right here, which fit right inside there. Furthermore, these are the little sealing areas over top of these gun tubs. So this has to fit right there, and it fits rather precisely right now. So what that means is, again, I'm either going to be trimming a little bit off of here, or going to be trimming a little bit off of either end of this middle piece. And I think it's really only about 1/2 millimeter. Not a lot, but just enough to get it to lay down. Even if there's a touch of tension, a little bit of weight along with the cement should get it to eventually sort itself out. But in the meantime, I've got a lot of sanding to do here on the edges, and then I've got some ejector pin marks to clean up here on these little sealing areas over top of the gun tubs. And it looks like I've got some ejector pin marks to clean up right here as well on these sealing areas over top of the aft deck section. So I've got to get all this cleaned up here before I continue on doing anything with these decks. Alrighty, well, the flight deck pieces have all been cleaned up, and I've got them in place, and no, they are not glued down yet. But I got so excited about how well the fit was after I got everything cleaned up and put down. So I'll kind of show you what I mean here. Clamps are in place right now just to really hold the flight deck to the hull and in place and kind of help me gauge where there might be a step. But one thing I was really excited about was cleaning up the flight deck parts yielded great results. Now there is only a slight springy gap here. Well, I thinned down a little bit of the Tamiya basic putty with some airbrush cleaner, which is essentially the same thing as Tamiya extra thin. So we've got it in the ejector pin knockout marks, and that just has to finish curing, and I will sand it. I'll put these parts aside. Again, there's more to do while stuff dries, so with that aside, let's get Lexington in front of us. So we're going to put on these parts here. There we go. Alrighty, and these are handed parts. Because of course the tapered end of this goes toward the very aft end of the ship. It'll fall into place. I say it'll fall into place as I struggle to get it in place, but this one went in nice and easy. that's in there. And I'll probably just have to sand off a tab or something like that on that, figure that out. But these right here, just depending on where these little tabs are, that will determine which side they go on. So in this case, it goes on the starboard side. And this right here, port side. All right, let's go ahead and I need a better look at this from this angle here. So tight. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open it up a little bit with a X-Acto knife blade tip. All right, let's see here. It shouldn't take a lot. So that tab right there is falling in. There we go. Now it's almost. I don't want to put too much pressure on it because I don't want it to slip out of my grasp and bend over. But it looks like those parts are on. So now I can take some extra thin here. And going from behind the part. This is nice. I'm just going to show you this also, by the way. Again, in the gold medal models photo etch set, there were some of those watertight doors, so I scratched everything off of the molded kit part and put the watertight doors on there. It looks a little bit better, but I'm not a, may or may not really show up at all. So possibly the only way anyone would ever know that it was there is just me saying, oh yeah, hey, I added that. Isn't that cool? That's too much. So now I'm going to go ahead and from the back side, just running some of this extra thin on there. Alright, decks have all been cleaned up, and I airbrushed the undersurfaces or the ceilings overhead of the decks right here. So this right here is the aft piece of the flight deck. Well, the ejector pin mark's been cleaned down. There's some artifacts, like there's one right there, just a teeny tiny. But honestly, it's not ever going to be seen. I can't make it out from here. I don't think anyone else, I don't think you can make it out from there. In fact, you can't even really see it until you're directly underneath of it, which is an impossibility if it's in place on the ship. So I'm happy with that. And here is our middle piece. Everything's cleaned up, and actually it'll go this way. Now you'll note that I am not airbrushing the top sides. And we will probably airbrush the top sides after I get this glued down and in place. I am putting a wooden deck over it. However, I just want to be sure that nothing can be seen underneath that wooden deck because it is pretty translucent. It is so thin. This right here is the piece of the flight deck that is over the bow. Again, the ejector pin marks have all been cleaned up, taken care of, so I'm very happy with how this has turned out. So the next step is going to be on to, for me, next step is going to be getting this, I want to get the flight deck mounted. And the reason behind that is I don't want to have to worry about clamping things and fiddling around with things if there's stuff in place that when this flexes a little bit might pop off. or might get in the way of clamps and break. Additionally, it'll just be a lot easier to get the painting done and get the actual wooden deck down, get that stained or painted, without all the other stuff in the way. Additionally, I can clear coat everything, get everything weathered up to how I want it to be. So we are going to go ahead and get the flight deck attached now. So we are doing this out of sequence from the instructions, and that's okay, because the instructions would already have us putting all of the stuff on the sides. So first things first, I'm going to put this down here and talk about how I'm going to go about doing this. So it fits great. I have no problems there at all. I will have to put a little clamping pressure down here in the back, just because without it, you can see it kind of raises up a little bit right there. But as long as I clamp it down, it goes down nice. No problems there at all. The one thing I'm going to have to do, though, when I get the cement in place is I'm going to have to go ahead and clamp this up right here. And the reason why I'm going to have to clamp that up is most of this right here is going to have to come in midships. And I'm going to have to use clamps along that entire piece in order to get that to behave the way I want it to. And if I don't clamp this, then it'll leave a really weird bend in the hull. And it'll also leave some of that exposed. So I'm going to have to do this piece on its own before I attach anything else. And the one thing I thought about is I go ahead and get this clamped into place right now. Alright, so I got that down. It's nice and even there. So the other thing I wanted to make sure that I would be able to do is if I've got the hole drawn in, and this is glued in place and it's solid, so it's not going to go anywhere, but it's got that welded plastic bond after all the cement cures, then am I going to be able to get the midships piece put in and get it matched up the way it needs to be matched up? So go ahead, and I already tested this, but I just wanted to explain for the audience here my thinking. When I clean this up, I trimmed up pieces a little bit here to allow for just a touch of lateral movement. And I'm going to get overhead of it a little bit here. Alright, so I can get it there in place. And then, again, remember, let's pretend like these clamps are here and this aft piece is firmly cemented in place. You should be able to get this put into place, and then everything cemented down, and it looks like it works out just fine without any trouble at all. And so then on top of that, I'm going to go ahead and you know what, I might even clamp this in place for right now. Okay, so now we'll pretend that the midships piece is secured. Can we get the piece over the bow end? And it goes in just fine. I'm going to bow it up a little bit so I can get it in place right there at the bow. And of course we've got a little bit of a bow because it's a tight fit, but I'm going to take this and put it down, and it fits perfectly. And I can take this and clamp it up. Oops. Now it is a one flight deck on the hull. It's laying down the way it's supposed to. So with that, we will start with the aft end. Alright, so I can just slather it up all over this right here. That'll never be seen by eyes again, ever. And I can go to our deck piece here, and I can just get this on the outside. Now I'm under no illusions that I'm not going to have to put some extra thin on the edges, and that's okay. And as you can see, the paint's kind of starting to dissolve off, and that's alright. Not a big deal also. Alright, and I got that, so now I'm going to go to the inside. And set that aside. Bring our hole over here so you can see where I'm cementing. Alright, now just take some of this cement all along the top of these pieces here. So honestly, as well as it fits, I'm kind of surprised that there's not a little bit more in the middle of the support. I guess the thought is that the 1/350th scale planes that'll be going on the deck aren't really heavy enough to cause that thick of plastic to bow under their weight. I guess that was the design, or the thought behind that engineering choice. Alright, and there's the old airbrush compressor. Okay, cement is in place. So here goes nothing on not completely flubbing this up. That satisfying click. That looks good. So as you can see, this right here needs to be clamped down a little bit. I just need to make sure that it is. There we go. Looks like it's even between the sides here on both ends. So I'm going to go ahead and attach some clamps here. Alright, so I got that down. And I got that down. Alright, so clamps are good. They're in place. Next thing I'm going to do is up here, kind of at the corners where this goes in. I think what's eventually going to happen is I'm going to be, when I take these off, I'm going to be running a little bit of extra thin just along everything, just to make sure that it's all attached as it should be. Alright, let's have a look. And take this off. Yep, I'm very, very happy with that. Alright, and so I'm going to take a couple of these bars here. Right there on the edges, so I got plenty of weight. Just making sure that this is going to stay in contact with the supporting pieces underneath it so that the cement has a chance to cure. So I'm going to put this aside so it can finish curing, and we'll move on to something else in the meantime. Alright, so now with the aft deck section in place, it's time to talk about doing other things while that cement cures completely. And that is going to be, before we can get this in place, we of course have to address the elevator. And I know earlier in the video I asked about opinions. I still would like to see opinions on those if you've got one. However, at this point in this juncture, I'm going to go ahead and have both elevators raised. Maybe one of these days when I pull the trigger on Saratoga at a much earlier date when she still had her big 8-inch guns, we'll do it with the elevators down. But I think for right now we're going to do it with the elevators up because I'm planning on having all of the aircraft out on the flight deck anyway, so deck space is going to be at a premium. However, while we're at it, and just because we have the parts, we'll go ahead and cut these out to see what it looks like if we were going to do something with the elevators in a position other than fully raised. So I've got the sprues where those parts will show up on the D sprue. It really is only just these two parts right here. So I'll go ahead and let me put this deck piece aside here. I'll go ahead and get these cut out. Well, luckily for us, just much like the rest of the flight deck, this is going to be covered. Both of these parts are going to have a piece of wooden deck. Alright, sorry about that. That was my late night alarm going off, letting me know it was time to take some medicine. At any rate, as I was saying here, both of these elevator parts will have some wood veneer applied to them. For the most part, they're just really going to appear like this, so it will be just one complete uninterrupted flight deck. Now this right here, it is not that piece right here, but it goes right back there. And as far as I can tell right off the bat, without cleaning these up fully, everything fits the way it should, and it's nice and flush. So I don't have to worry about modifying them so that there's no step or anything like that. So get those cut out, put those aside. Here are some more of the elevator parts. I'm not 100% sure how this particular, how the forward elevator worked. I think that what would make sense to me is, you can see when this elevator is deployed in a lower position, sometimes these elevator parts are still in a raised position like this. So I'm wondering, and because they've kind of look like almost like barn doors there, wonder if they were just hinged, and they hinged down when an airplane was coming up, and then when it got back up they'd go back to it closed. I don't know. I'd venture though that that's how they work. So we've got those cut out, and now we're going to do the elevator innards. So let's see here, we have two A26 parts. And it looks to be like most of the rest of this A sprue is coming off. Alright, and 9 and 12 right here. It's not going to hurt the placement of those elevators at all to put these parts in position. And so if we've got the parts, why not use them? And this is for the larger forward elevator. What does not make any sense to me is how aircraft would make it onto and off of the elevators in the hangar deck if they are completely surrounded by walls. So a lot of the resources I've looked at don't seem to really clearly explain it. But, all right, the sprues aside, I'm going to go ahead and get these parts cleaned up, and we'll be right back here ready for assembly. All right, I've got all of my parts cut out here, so we're going to go ahead and start on the forward elevator. Pop that out. Pretty quick and easy to do here. They have you doing this apart from the deck, but it's not a very stable sub-assembly. So the way I propose doing it here is well, I don't know. Let's go with how they say to do it. And just for the sake of clarity, we'll do it right there. Maybe just putting a touch of extra thin on there. Alright, and then this is going to go like that. This right here is not my favorite fit. Okay, so of course it whipped its way down there. So no worries, it is on the there we go. I said not my favorite fit. Alright, so still sticking. And then we'll just match these two assemblies up. And let's see, get him in there. Fiddly is how I would describe this. Everything's in there, so as you can see, I'm kind of just haphazardly throwing some, oops, sorry about the camera bump, haphazardly throwing some extra thin down there. Don't need a really exact neatness here, at least for the sake of this build. However, if you did want to display this with the elevator down, and again, if I ever get around to Saratoga, might do it with the elevators down. I want you to bear in mind there's probably not any 100% true historical references as to what the interior colors were. For instance, there's a lot of debate on the hangar deck colors for like Yorktown, Enterprise. The conventional thinking is that the hangar deck was white. However, a lot of photographic evidence would suggest that the hangar decks were painted in like an aluminum paint to help with light reflectivity. And then sometime along the beginning of World War II, another ship caught fire and that paint burned like crazy, so it all got stripped off. So a lot of people also are under the impression that some of these hangar decks might have just been bare metal at one point in time, which would be terrible for rust. And then a lot of the modern carriers are in fact painted white. So I can understand where the conventional wisdom of white for World War II aircraft carriers comes from. But I would think, I would venture that in this time period, we're probably going to be going with an aluminum paint, similar to what Yorktown would have had. At least that's my belief. Whether or not that's what you believe, or whether or not that's 100% correct, we might not ever know, because there's no one alive right now that was on Yorktown. That is what the elevator looks like. Don't ask me how, if it was surrounded by walls, how the airplanes got on and off this elevator, but that's it. And so you can take this, and no, I'm not putting these in place yet, but we can take these elevator pieces and just drop them into place. However, if you wanted it positionable, you could bring it partially up or partially down like that. It'd kind of be cool. It just still begs the question of how they got on and off. And here's something. With these parts up like this, with or without those parts up like that, if this is down right here and these parts are there, that still allows for a viewing angle into the void of the hull, of which there is absolutely nothing. No detail, no hangar deck, nothing. So that's why I'm opting for the elevators to be completely up. And again, just easy enough to do it. What I want to do, alright, so as I was saying before the battery and the camera died, what I want to do is make sure I get this on a 100% flat surface, so that is 100% flat. There's no step or anything like that, and then I will glue that into place. So that's not just yet. I'm going to get these elevator wells into place. Alright, so we're going to go with the rear one here, which is these parts. Let's see here, this looks like A12 if I'm matching up to the pictures. And A26 will go like that. We have to construct these like this. I'll just use a little bit of the quick setting this time. And for a quick bond that won't try to glue itself down to the bottom of this deck. Alright, and same thing here with this. This is A9 and the other A26. There we go. Quick setting. Alright, we got those two done, and it looks like on the bottom side of this, these open hatches go toward the rear. Alright, neatly contained in a little pre-designated spot inside the deck, so extra thin time. know I'm being careless with this cement, but it's all right. Again, we're never ever going to see any of this. Not on my USS Lexington. Get in there. Yeah, I'll shore up the corners now. All right, cool. And that is what that elevator section looks like. So there you have it. Those are done. So next up is going to be me getting this mounted on something flat so we can put the actual elevator pieces in place. All right, this is my solution here. I've got a old cutting mat right there. And I need something offset here from the basic desk height because I've got these locating bits right here on the deck, which would make this sit a little cockeyed. So I can get this and put it on there. And now I can take these deck parts, if I can get them in there properly. There we go. If I'm holding down on this and I'm pushing down on that, can everyone see? And take some extra thin. And this I'm going to be a little bit more sparing. It's not a big deal if some of this extra thin runs onto the wax paper or underneath what we're doing right now. Just again for the simple fact that we are putting down a wooden veneer deck on top of this. But all the same, I would like for it to not be messy. Just as always, if the wooden veneer does not work out, then I'd probably just be stuck with having to paint this and not having a giant mess would be great. Okay, so that's on there. So next up we will put these guys into place. Again, we've got the benefit that everything is flush with the main flight deck. There we go. Be about time to refill my jar of extra thin. All right, go ahead and you can see the wax paper sticking to it a little bit, and it looks like we did get some cement on and under. Looks good to me. And a little smear, that's all right. Onto the rear, and pretty much the same drill. see. There. Looks like I just had it the wrong way around. I suppose if I wanted to be even more careful with that, I could have just glued these little pins in on either side, but on both of those pieces, that kind of gives the inherent risk of this accidentally getting bumped either way before I can get to it with the cement. Alright, I'll let that cure up a little bit and pull it off and have a look here in just a few. Alrighty, the next day has come and I took all the clamps off of our aft flight deck piece, and for the most part, great success. I can lift up the entire model. However, something that did not go to plan was back here. This right here did not kind of see me wiggling a little bit maybe. This did not cement down properly, and as a result, see the hole still flexes a little bit underneath it. So at this point, what I'm going to do though, I am going to go ahead and get the Midships flight deck piece in place. And I want to go ahead and get this glued up. I want this seam to be as tight as possible. So in order to make sure I get that seam as tight as possible, I'm going to take our bow flight deck piece and I'm going to put it into place. And what that should do is help put some pressure back here on this, help push that in enough. Alright, so next up I gotta make sure that this is properly lined up. And then I'm going to take a clamp. Hang on a second. I'm going to make sure it was properly lined up front also. I don't want any chance of a misalignment or anything like that. So one thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a clamp and I'm going to fit it up here right around midship, and this is mainly just to ensure that this deck piece does not slip below the level of the water, top level of the hull. We'll work on getting the hull straightened out and glued down with the deck properly at a later time. Right now I just want to concentrate on that seam. I'm going to take this quick clamp here. There. Now that is very firmly connecting these two pieces of flight deck together, and it is bringing the hull in. What the hope is that some of that cement will wick down and hold the hull in, but if it doesn't, it doesn't. the main goal of doing this right now is just to get these flight deck pieces connected. So I've got it set so it doesn't feel like there's any step between them. All right. I'll take some extra thin. Flight deck provides such a nice little resting place for it. It's okay to really kind of pour it on here, right in the middle. And the reason behind that is it's got those tabs underneath it, and so the cement will wick its way down into the tabs to hold the flight deck pieces together. I'm alright with a little bit of it wicking its way along the joint. That's fine. It might reach the clamps, but the clamps are positioned in such a way that it should not run down into the hull. Yeah, it's a lot of cement. But the nice thing about extra thin is it will evaporate off while it's setting up. So I'm going to go ahead and let that set up for quite a bit, and afterwards we'll come back and see what we've got. Well, the flight deck sections have set up properly, and without any intro to this next kind of step of what I'm doing here, already kind of started clamping it down little bit by little bit and gluing this midsection flight deck to the hull. As you can see, it is I'm doing it in just tiny little 1 to 2 inch sections just to make sure that we don't get any area of the hull that's bubbling out. But it also allows me to kind of clamp down the flight deck at the same time. So this is what I'm doing right now, and it is a slow process, but it's going to be altogether necessary. So I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of extra thin and just touch it there where the flight deck meets the hull. And I'm trying to avoid spots where the clamps are touching the connection between the hull and the flight deck. Because what I don't want to do is have the cement wick its way underneath the pads of these quick grips and then leave a great big rectangular shaped smudge on the side of the hull that I have to deal with. I'm just trying to take care in where I'm applying the cement, and I'm sure my volume is changing, and it's just because I'm moving around the side and different sides of where this is in order to try to get good angles on approach so I can properly apply the cement. So this is going to take a while, but I'm going to do this the rest of this all off camera until we get to the bow section of the flight deck. Rather than put this video off for several more days just for getting around to clamping the midships hull together and getting it closed up there around the flight deck piece. Looking at this, I figure I'm in a good enough spot here with how this lines up to go ahead and get this in place and get our video wrapped up for video 5 of USS Lexington. So I'm going to go ahead and go about doing that now. So this right here has just a couple of main locating pieces here. It's these two locating ridges here and the one up front. The one up front is the one I'm mainly concerned about. It slots in right there. I'm just gonna hold that in. Now, when I'm going to actually get this fitted, I'm going to start up there, and then I'm going to flex the deck a little bit and push it into place. I'm not uber concerned about getting cement on the locating ridges up here, because again the hole's a little wide and a little flexing right here, so this won't be glued right off the bat. We'll glue it to the midships flight deck piece, and we'll glue it up front because everything really lines up well up front. But this portion right here is going to be part of getting the hole to flex in a little bit and getting it cemented in place permanently. So we'll do that off camera in between this video and video 6. So I'll go ahead and take this off. In the meantime, what I can do though is I can get cement from about this portion up. And yeah, that is correct. From about this portion up, I can get the cement in place, and I can tape it in place so that everything stays where it's supposed to be. And then we'll also cement in this right here. So I'm going to go ahead and go with the white cap Tamiya cement. And here I can just place it right on the inside of the hole up here. And just, you know, everywhere on the hole where it's going to be coming into contact with this flight deck. Oh, sorry about my hat on the camera. I think I've said it before, I never gave a whole lot of credit to the white cap cement. I've never had that much of a need of it before. Most other projects haven't required such long working time. Now, as much as I'm trying to avoid little cement mishaps, some's going to happen, and it's okay. I know it's going to happen, and it's just a kind of a nature of the beast. That there's going to be further painting, there's going to be some blending, sanding and blending here to get everything looking like it's just one ship and not a conglomeration of mismatched parts. Alright, so I've got cement everywhere I want it. I'm going to put some here on that. And I'm going to put some right here on these pieces. So the main goal by the end of this video is going to be getting the entire flight deck cemented into place. And I just want to point out I'm not super concerned about how this is lining up with the hole back here as much as I am about it lining up with the midships deck piece. So it looks to be in pretty good shape. So I'm going to go ahead and flex this and get that locating ridge up front settled in place. And it's lined up exactly where I want it to be now. I'm looking straight down on it, and I'm not seeing either side of the hole sticking out beyond the be on the flight deck up there. It's lined up back here. So at this point I'm going to put a little bit of weight down on it. And I'm going to start with using some Tamiya masking tape up here to kind of get, there's a little bit of a gap and it closes up pretty easily if I use a little bit of Tamiya masking tape. So go ahead and do so. There we go. Let me turn it around. There we go. And same thing back here. Oh, a little hair. Thanks a lot, pets. Alright, so again I'm kind of putting some squeezing pressure on those, pulling up on the tape. And the goal there is just to close up the gap. It's a very small gap and it required virtually no pressure at all, but I do want to leave as little room for it coming apart after the fact. So I'm going to use a lot of taping pressure just to make sure that it doesn't. Alright. So, all around we have gotten this properly glued up and in place. This to the edges here. Just the tiniest of steps right there. And despite how careful I was, I'm not sure if I can get, oh, maybe. But that step is really only at the edge, it's not at those two kind of tongues there. So I think it's alright. Alright, I'm very happy with how this flight deck has gone down. It's actually fit a lot better than most of the rest of this build. So with that, we're going to call it a video. Let me put this aside. I'll be right back. Alright, with the main part of Lexington put aside, all of our cements capped up, kind of go ahead and quickly review. We still haven't accomplished everything on page 7. We still have the F10 and F28 parts. They're painted and ready to go, however. So after we get everything blended in on the hull and the flight deck and get that painted up, we'll be ready to go with getting those little details put in. We'll also start taking a look at getting some of this armament put together here. I've got Infinity models Orlik cannons for the 20 millimeters. Right there, there's 25. The kit says make 27. Now, I looked at a pictorial reference in May, and there is a discrepancy here, and that comes back here. What caused me to take a look at this is I actually saw on several sources that Lexington, when she was sunk, only had 25 20 millimeter Orlikins, and there would be no reason to make 27 if she only had 25. And it really comes right here on the funnel part on the starboard side of that. Trumpeter has you putting down 9 of these right there. And looking at the pictorial references online, it looked like there was only 7 that I could clearly make out. In place of these, there was something else. It was really difficult to make out what it was, but it almost looked like stacked up Carly floats or something like that. So I'm not putting those 2 in. As you can see, I've got them crossed out. So I have enough of the 20mm Oerlikon cannons. We'll start on there. We got to start making up the 1.1-inch anti-aircraft guns. So I've only got enough barrels right now to make up 10 sets. It says to make 12, so I've got another 20 barrels on the way. Thank you very much, Squadron. And then we've also got my 3D printed 5-inch guns. These are the 5-inch 25 caliber guns. The barrels are a little bit longer than what seems to be in the references, but the actual gun bases and mounts and everything like that seem to be a lot more detailed and a lot more accurate, so we're going with that. And additionally, start to see some of these water-cooled 50 caliber machine guns here as part F1. And I have got, again by Infinity Models, 25 water-cooled 50 caliber machine guns to make up. So we'll start looking into getting some of these done, the 1.1-inch anti-aircraft guns done, ships, boats, and getting some of this stuff put into place, like these gun platforms. Additionally, since we've already gotten this done and now this done, we'll be moving into page 12 here. There's some more deck details, and this will go down after we have a look at the wooden deck and its placement on the model. So that will be video 6, but it's a wrap right now for video 5. I have no ETA on when video 6 will be coming out. I've got other projects, other modeling projects to do. I do modeling projects that I don't put videos out for just because sometimes I need a refresher on my mood with modeling. After all, it's a hobby. I'm not making any money doing this. I'm just doing this for fun and sharing my fun with you if you choose to watch. And in addition to that, I've got full-time work. I've got a full-time family. So sorry about that. I don't have an ETA, and I refuse to stick to a schedule because as soon as my hobby becomes more like work, I'm going to stop doing it. So until video 6 of USS Lexington comes out, please stay safe and happy modeling.